So we talked about the past, and now we're going to talk about the future of remote work and digital nomadism. And do you guys know what's the best way to predict the future? Any idea? By creating it. And that's why we have invited people that are actually change makers. Now we're going to have a panel with Nacho as a moderator. And there is one thing you probably don't know about Nacho. Even if now he's one of the top leaders in remote work, he actually got into that by coincidence. He founded a shared office. That was his business. He wanted to basically rent desks, but that business failed. That was 2014. But because of that, he met first digital nomads, and he got to know about digital nomadism as a concept. And now here we are, all of us, because of him. So big applause for Nacho Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Then Gonzalo Hall again. Maya Middle Miss. And there is someone else, a famous nomad, 10 years of nomading, public speaker, entrepreneur. And Dean is actually not his real name. Did you know that? He put that name to himself. And he's also known as a king of nomads. He wants to prove that you can be anything. You don't need to study. You don't need to be given any title. You can be anything. So he is a king. Dean Kushel.
All right. Can you hear me well? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, my boss told me that I could do whatever I want in the panel. So I would love to. I mean, we're here on stage, right? But as for those of you who are in the unconference, I like the unconference format better than the conference, but we have to do both because I want to hear from the audience. I want you guys to be part of this. So I would love this to be a conversation between all of us. So sort of like a ask me anything type of deal. And we would also like to hear from you. We have plenty of time here. I mean, if this guy did it in, 15 minutes, 70 slides, we have plenty of time for all of you to talk. So please, raise your hand if you want to throw out a question or a comment into the conversation, because we're going to talk about the future. What's next? And we have a great selection of people here. First question that Dan wanted me to ask you. What do you think the digital nomad scene and lifestyle will look like in 5 or 10 years? What are your thoughts on this, Tim?
Well, I didn't want you to ask me this. I just suggested you ask them. I hate to make predictions because typically I'm wrong. And it's easy to prove it in 5, 10 years. But I definitely think that the movement will grow and something that is unstoppable. No one can stop it. It will slow down. We see a lot of companies going back to the office. And I think they have the reasons, and I even support it in a way. I'm not all in for like remote work is the solution for everything. But I think we'll see more people working remote, but less travel. You travel for 2 years, you have crazy experiences, and then, okay, I'm tired. Let me find a place in Las Palmas or somewhere, get in, and I come to just set up a base. And I will see people moving places more than nomadic. That place, what I think will be in 2035 or something like that. Not the same hype of crazy travel that we all going for. And we'll see more companies going remote as well. As younger people, younger generation will take CEO and decision-making position in companies, it will become more of a norm, and people will learn how to do remote work, right? Because now there's a lot of, I think, trial and error that's going on, and it's not working as well as it should be.
Right, so in your opinion, it's a little bit movement from digital nomadism into slow nomadism / remote work, right?
Yeah, it will be more remote work than just the hype of the travel.
Awesome. All right. I must say that over the years, we've been hosting remote workers for almost 7-8 years now. I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of people who jump in the movement. They go crazy. They want to spend like 3 days in each location and travel the world. And obviously, after a certain time, this is unsustainable, right? Like you get tired. You get tired of having to settle every single time, meet new people, etc., etc. So you start traveling as slower. And I definitely agree with that. Maya, you want to elaborate on it?
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think, 10 years is very difficult to predict because that's such a long time in terms of the speed the world is moving at now. But let's look at the trends. We're going to see air travel getting more expensive. It needs to get more expensive for ecological reasons. We're going to see connectivity improving. We're going to have 5G and Starlink. So yeah, we'll be able to go where we want and stay there a bit longer. We'll be able to take advantage of working locally, these 15-minute cities ideas, so you will have community on your doorstep, whether you want to work in peace at home or go to the local co-working or coffee shop. And that will give us all a chance to be more slow-madic, I hope. Also, that fits in with the trend of the badly named digital nomad visas, which are mostly remote work visas, and they're encouraging people to come and spend a year in one place to maybe really settle and test it out, see where you're going to fit in the world. And I think part of the nomad hype at the moment is still the backlash from being locked down, for being not able to travel. As with all hype cycles, then the media is going to say remote work's dead, digital nomadism is dead, and of course it's not, because all the people who were doing it before will just quietly carry on. But I think we will see this trend towards just maybe travelling madly as a student, as a gap year or something for a little while, and then finding out where you want to be and settling down and having a base and travelling from there in the future.
Gonzalo, what's your experience? What are your thoughts? Are you going to predict like Peter levels, we're going to be billions soon? Or?
I disagree with everything that you just said. Oh, yours.
I believe that digital nomadism is just growing now. I understand what you're saying.
Your baby agrees.
I agree that at the individual level, there are certain stages, like you mentioned. At the global level, we are just growing as a movement. I still see many of my friends wanting to start and not starting yet because the world is still kind of unstable for several reasons. Now, jobs are unstable, we are approaching an economic crisis. I still see 50% of my friends wanting to do this in 5 years. I still see people getting excited about the idea of becoming digital nomads. For someone who is doing this for like 6 years, yes, there is, most of the people start slowing down. Like now I have a base, which is kind of the second stage of nomadism. I have a base in Madeira, I stay there for 5 months, 6 months, and I travel the rest of the year. This gives me a place to go back, gives me a community where I belong, but I would never leave there full time. Because I get bored. Even in the middle of a crazy community, I get bored about the place. I have to travel, but I need to travel. So as I see it, nomadism will be a really part of Erasmus. But I'm doing the way it's growing. It's starting very slow, it's just growing and growing and growing. People feel the need to explore and to belong to something else. And if remote work is just growing, and it works like a pendulum, you see, 3 weeks ago, everyone's going back to the office. This week, this is not working. Everybody's remote again. Next week, we'll see what happens. We definitely see that as an average, the people are going to work remotely. As an average, 20% of office space in the US, especially New York and San Francisco, is empty today. This is not going back. So with more people working remotely full-time, with more companies finally making a final decision about their future model, which will be flexible work, not the stupid hybrid 3-2 whatever, flexible work. Do you, we are here, you have here an office, do you. All these will push people that now will have some stability in their decision for the first time, maybe next year, to actually plan to go out for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, embrace this lifestyle, try it out for 2 years or not. So I see it as a movement just growing. On the other side, I see the government finally trying to figure out what is this. Is this tourism? Is this remote workers? Is this immigration? And as I explained in my presentation, I see now some countries finally thinking about the full integration of digital nomadism in their broader spectrum of trying to attract talent, of trying to attract companies and investment. And now that we are part of the conversation, we'll see much better projects like we have in Micronesia, spreading around the world. This is my vision for 10 years.
Awesome. Anybody in the audience wants to throw in? I have a lot of questions here, but go for it.
Actually, I have one, and I love that you're saying that many companies don't go back to normal, but coming from a corporate career, actually, and talking about this topic with my friends, with my guests, and they say that still they have some flexibility, like 1 month, 3 months, but not fully. How do you think we can also influence those, especially big corporations, to adapt it? Because it's easier for startups than, for example, companies like Deloitte, Vodafone, who are global and big.
Can I answer this? Yes, please. We need to teach the managers.
Yeah.
The big problem, in my opinion, is that C-level executives further on, they don't have the right skills. They never were taught. If you look at the executive trainings, MBAs, go to Harvard Business School, have you ever seen yet a proper distributed work leadership program? No, it has never happened. There's all kinds of executive training for decades, but it was all focused around essential leadership. And my vision on this is that they are limited, they are scared, because those who actually do it efficiently, those distributed companies that are out there, many of those companies sort of like became distributed companies to start. So they actually just sort of like learn by doing. But there hasn't been any proper training, particularly for those corporate, very corporate environments that really need sort of like that structure and those learnings. So I think it's a process, but as more and more people get to try it, I think we are going to push in that direction. Because I think the pandemic forced us to try it. I think a lot of people loved it and want to keep doing it in some way. So this is probably pushing a lot forward. I know a lot of executives are trying to pull back, maybe because of that fear of not knowing how to do it, how we're going to control people if I don't see them, etc., etc. But as they learn and as there are new programs coming up that teach those skills, we're going to see a lot more. Go for it.
All right. I just wanted to come in on that from the manager perspective. I think there are so many managers who are scared, not only because they have no clue how to manage people who aren't in their direct line of sight, but because they realize they might well be superfluous anyway. In companies which have multiple levels of a hierarchy, with somebody managing the managers, and the squeezed bit in the middle is, what do those people do anymore? Once you transition properly to remote working and you have the workflow visible, which we can do technologically. There's no hierarchy in a Slack community. You know, people can just DM the CEO with a question. You don't need all those layers. A lot of those people were gatekeepers, they were filters. They simply have to retrain and repurpose, maybe actually deliver something, because it's going to be very obvious if they don't. It's perfectly doable, but it's not surprising there's pushback. When I used to do change management projects pre-pandemic, it would often take like 2 years of piloting. Well, we'll have this team work from home and then they'll report back and we'll evaluate it and things like that. And there was so much pushback. Well, let's do another pilot because we're just not ready. And these were companies that were actively trying to embrace remote work and trying to train their managers to manage people in a distributed way. So, you know, no wonder those people are scared. There is a lot more disruption to come, and not necessarily disruption in a good way, but it will shake down eventually, and those people will find some way to be productive from wherever they end up.
So your point is that they're not scared because they don't know, just because they're scared because they might lose their job?
They might well lose their job if their job was just walking around looking over people's shoulders, because we don't need that anymore. All of that workflow can be made visible with the right tech stack. So what are they for? They're going to have to actually produce something.
That's a very good point. Anyone wants to sum up before they jump?
Yeah, I wanted to share my experience with that on your point. I work for a big corporation. I'm from the Canary Islands. Actually, I'm from the Canary Islands, but I always work abroad.
Last place was in Frankfurt, in Germany. So when COVID came, as many of us, I had the opportunity to work from home. I came here and stayed since 2 years ago. But my company has been pushing me to go back to the office since 2 years ago. Finally, since 6 months ago, I managed to get my remote contract. So I'm legally here, yeah. But they are all the time, like, you know, single me out, like, you are the exception. You know that this is not going to be forever. You need to come back. And in fact, I'm the exception. So I see like a big resistance of the management to be open to let the people to work from wherever they want.
You don't miss the water cooler? All the coffee home?
A little bit, but I think I will survive.
Thank you. Ron, do you want to jump in?
Yes, I disagree. I think we are all doing a big mistake, and it's unfortunate that someone decided to call remote work. Who knows what agile is? Agile methodology. So agile is a methodology of work, right? It actually changes how your company works to fit what they build, the ecosystem they build. The biggest mistake of remote work is the name. Because we and most companies still believe that remote work is about where you work from, and that is not true. Remote work is actually a whole new methodology of working, and companies need to adapt to this methodology. In the Agile movement, we have Agile coaches, we have Scrum Masters. There is a whole ecosystem of jobs created to help companies to adapt to this new way of working. In remote work, because companies and people still believe this is about where you work from, this is not true. There is some remote job coaches, there are some remote work consultants. They are not spread out. You don't see a head of remote like you see an agile coach or a scrum master inside the companies. If companies actually want to do this seriously, if we as a movement want to take this to the next level, we need a strong remarketing. It's a little bit like Web3. Web3 marketing sucks. If we improve it, we can actually be mainstream. And it's fun that the biggest companies are doing the coolest things, but very silently. Like Deloitte is a great case. Like you mentioned Deloitte, we mentioned Chuena. Deloitte has a policy of don't say, don't tell, more or less. It's like people can work remotely, they are around. If nobody asks you, don't tell them. Like your manager should more or less know, but except that they don't position themselves as remote, but they know as a company that needs to attract thousands of people every year, that if they don't go remote, they will never attract the talent. Worst, their competitors are going remote, so if they don't remote, they'll just not don't hire, they will lose their own people to the competitors. They cannot afford this. People are money, talent is money. So they actually have to go remote without telling anyone because their C-level people hate remote work for some reason because they invested millions in this real estate, commercial real estate, and now it's everything happening in a hidden way. So, and for the last step is the laws, right? Most companies don't allow you to work remotely in another country because of the legalities around it. So, or you become a freelancer or contractor, like Maya said, or you actually have to have an EOR, and it's a confusion. So we still, as a European Union, have to figure out the laws, at least inside our bubble, so that people can work remotely for any company in Europe without having to go through a never-ending process.
Dean, I'm really interested in listening to your opinion on this topic. You lead a community of over 40,000 people in Digital Nomad Israel. Israel being one of the startup hubs, entrepreneurship hubs of the world, but still, and I think we had this conversation a while ago, still being very reluctant to change in a way, very traditional in terms of being office first in a majority. How do you see this evolving?
I will do it in the context of the question. We all point fingers to the government, it's not enough policies, there is no head of remote to set up the culture, the manager is afraid. I blame you and myself. I think that, yes, it's nice to throw the ball to the managers, but it's the employees, the workers, to prove that remote work works. When I started 10 years ago, I had to beg the companies I work with in the Bay Area, in the States, to let me work remote. And I did, and they told me, you earned it. You proved that your work is just as good as it's work in the office. But this was not the case for others. Because when I work with clients, and if I do skydiving in New Zealand at the time that I need to be on a call with my client, they don't care that I want to do skydiving right now. And that's what happens to many people. And here came the chance, 2020, COVID-19, everyone, all the managers said, okay guys, here's your chance. You wanted to work remote? Do it. Have fun. Prove that you can do it. And we failed. We failed because we saw that sales teams in Salesforce who worked remote, 96% less productive, less sales, not closing deals. We saw companies losing on innovation, not having the same culture anymore, communication. And you cannot blame just the managers or the government didn't put the right visa in place. The fact that I worked remote didn't mean that I had to work less, that I could go to the beach in Bali and enjoy Kopanjan. it meant that I had to work more. I had to compensate for the distance. I had to be a better communicator, a better team player to prove that remote work works. And I think this is what we need to do now in order even for a traditional workspace like Israel that has a lot of innovation to prove that we can do it and we can work remote and still make those companies excel. Or we accept a new setup that, companies will drop 10-15% in value, 15% less sales, we move to 4 days a week of work, and this is the new way to live, which is okay, we need to live. Life is not only about work. I actually against remote work. I think that there's work and travel. I'm now in the phase that I only want to travel. Who wants to work and travel? It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I want just to travel. So
want to travel for work.
So work and travel is a phase, but I think it's our responsibility that proves that we can perform and we can do as good as work. As Gonzalo just said, it's a method of work, and we need to excel at it.
Christian, do you want to jump in?
I would really like to second on the last aspect Gonzalo brought up, and also you, Dean, which is actually there is not such a thing as cross-border employment. It's something that everyone who wants a job, a remote job, needs to realize. Even these big remote companies like Safety Wing, they don't employ a single person. All of them are contractors that run a business themselves. So if you want a cross-border employment, and especially a nomadic employment that is not with you living in another country, you need to start your own business and get an entity with which you can bill the company that you work for. Because people working for companies have for the last century, especially in Europe, fought for all the social security systems that we have in place, which means the employers have the obligation to pay health insurance, unemployment insurance, and all these things that we have and that work within countries where they are organized. And within Europe, there is some kind of a compatibility, but if you work in another country, even within Europe, you need to comply as an employee and an employer with the local law of that country. But if you not want to live in one country but actually move around, there is no other way than you start your own business, build that company, because that's the only way to relieve them from the obligation of complying with all the social security for yourself. And this is something where we don't need to blame the countries, the governments, or the companies not willing to work remotely, but it's up to each of us who wants to work mobile to accept that, take care of our own social security, run a business through which we can grow those companies, and that's the foundation that every individual who wants to live that lifestyle has to accept and realize themselves.
That's a very good point. Building up on your comments, and we blamed before the sea levels, right? I mean, not because I have anything against it, but it's one of the truths. But another reason why remote work it's not still where it should be is compliance, right? Just as an example, Spain didn't even have a law when the pandemic hit that covered basic law regulation around remote work. The government realized that they sent all the public employees home illegally. There was no law. And in 3 months, they just came up with the law during the pandemic because they realized, okay, well, we didn't know that this was an option, a possibility, and we have to run to implement sort of like a system that gives coverage to all these people. And that was something that was also holding back a lot of companies in Spain because they didn't have a part in that to structure, like how would the relationship with those employees be settled. You bring a good point in terms of becoming, building a company yourself so that you have that flexibility. I think that's also connected with another part of this that we are living right now, which is freelancing. Freelancing is becoming the new norm. I mean, in the US, I think it's already over 50% of the people are freelancers, and this is a trend. The fact that you can not only work for a company, but work for many, and be your own company and provide services to many. I think that's also something that it might help the movement because it will allow that flexibility. But Maya, please.
I wanted to come in on the idea of freelancing versus employment because going back to that 10-year lens, I think what we're going to see is rather than a dichotomy, that will become a spectrum and a blend. And at one end, we'll have highly independent contractors working on more or less a gig-by-gig basis, but at a very senior level. But within that, we're going to see far more fractional roles. We're going to see retainers. We're going to see longer-term ways where an individual finds a way to make a contract with an entity. And probably that individual will be a separate business entity of their own, whether that's a micro-business, whatever. But we're going to see more and more roles of increasing degrees of seniority, people at the C-level who are actually contractors, in fact. They're their own limited company. They might not work exclusively for that one entity. We've still got lots of compliance problems to solve, and that includes things like IP management. What if one of your C-level people is actually also working for a competitor? How do you manage that if they're fractional? But hopefully then we're going to see increasingly even head of remote roles in the C-suite. They might not have to be 100% owned. And going back to Gonzalo's metaphor about agile, I'm wondering if we're going to start to see something like a certification for those head of remote roles, like the Agile and Scrum. If somebody's got that Scrum Master certification, you don't need to go through a long hiring process. You can just contract that person to come in and manage that project. Are we going to see the same for head of distributed work roles? Maybe we need to build that ourselves next.
Yes.
What about GDPR? Being crossing country lines? With all the new laws, GDPR being one of them, and the data, the protection of data and where it's stored, do you see any hindrance in the Nomad community in that regard? Like, let's say you're working for a U.S. client and you're not allowed to have data on a Europe server or vice versa, whatever it is. How are we going to navigate that?
Any GDPR experts here?
Yeah.
I just know, very short, I just know that, for example, many companies are forbidding people to work from certain countries like China.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. If you have access to a big database, it's literally impossible for your company to allow you to work from places like China because they'll just go and acquire your database illegally. This is just one of the cases, but it's the one I know the most about.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. There will always be exceptions, but in general, it's becoming so much easier simply because of the connectivity we have. You can have your database in a GDPR-compliant data center in Europe. You can have your limited company somewhere else. You can be traveling the world or set up your base where you want to. And provided all the contracts and agreements, or the special term, I can't remember what you call it under GDPR, that you have special agreements with different providers of people who manage or access your data, and provided you stay away from China and Iran and a few places where you really can't make those contracts effectively, it can all be done. And the fact that we have our fast instant connectivity means it doesn't matter where your data was. When I first moved that data from a hissing box under my desk to a data center, I had to choose one that was within a certain number of miles of where we all lived to connect into it 15 years ago. That's simply not the case now. So your data can always be compliant. You just need to figure out that map of where's the best place to put your data, same as you figure out the best place to put your family or your business.
Any thoughts before we jump into the next topic? No? All right, we're talking about the future here. And going back to the present, there are some challenges around this transformation. I think any transformation obviously generates a positive impact and generates a negative impact. So the question here, or the topic here, is that how can we push for that positive impact while trying to minimize the negative impact? And where do you see the negative impact being now? I mean, we've all read in the press negative news around digital nomads, etc., connected most of them with the lack of housing. But I would love to hear your thoughts about how we can make sure that in the future this movement encourages the positive impact and minimizes the negative impact.
All the news that mention that digital nomads increase the housing prices are lies. Why? Show me the data. I went to the data because I am from Lisbon. I am Portuguese. I was being attacked left and right. I have death threats on my Twitter because I promote digital nomadism, which is quite fun. All the data went through first shows that Portugal is not even in the top 5 countries in Europe where the prices grew the most. Countries that are very sexy for digital nomads like Lithuania are actually in the top 5. And I mentioned the thousands of digital nomads going to it's waning right now. Not because it's a bad country, but because they never actually built infrastructure for nomads. This is the first one. All the top countries where the prices increase the most are actually not the nomad destination. Even in Portugal, the top 5 cities where the prices grew the most are not digital nomad hubs. Places like Viseu that you never heard about, and many others that are actually on the top 5 are not digital nomad hubs. Also, it's a global crisis. It's happening everywhere. It's not about Portugal. It's not about Spain. It's from New York, from the US, down to Australia, passing through Singapore, the whole Europe. It's a mess. And when we go through the why, at least in Portugal, and I did research the why, there's actually several factors weighing in. The first one is 2008 crisis. Because of the real estate crisis in 2008, construction dropped 80%, meaning no new houses were being built. Also, we have more than 100,000 houses that are empty and definitely ready to work, but because of the local laws, people can actually go buy them and renovate them. So we do have the houses that we could fix the whole housing crisis in Portugal, just the laws don't actually help to renovate those houses. And then, yeah, we have a war in Europe and everything, one is getting more expensive, etc. So it's just not true that digital nomads can raise prices. And there's another big reason. Like I mentioned in my presentation, we use tourism accommodation, places like co-living spaces. So we don't actually rent an apartment for 2 years. Expats do, immigrants do. By the way, Portugal received 60,000 immigrants last year. You know how many Americans? Less than 1,000. The American problem is actually we received 15,000 Brazilians, less than 1,000 Americans. But the blame on the media is all these Americans are moving to Portugal, making our houses more expensive. What about all the others? What about the Portuguese coming back to Portugal? Many of my friends came back to Portugal and are renting and buying houses in Portugal, and they came with the money, the remote job they get from Ireland, from Germany, from the US. It's just a housing market right now, it's how it is. But basically, nomads use tourism accommodation, not long-term accommodation, two completely different markets. We do have to prepare better in terms of housing. We see the trend of people coming from the north to the south, especially in the Canary Islands, Madeira. We see this in south of Spain, Portugal. I see Italy, Greece, Croatia going next, for example. They just didn't prepare themselves to receive all this wave of immigration. But we live in the world in 10 years where part of the north will literally immigrate for the south. And that's okay, because we in the south immigrated to the north to get the good jobs, to get the good access to health. Portugal specifically is an immigration country. We always have more people leaving the country than coming to Portugal. We are losing population. Even with this wave of immigration, we lost 20,000 people in the last years. 20,000 people. We are very small. This is a problem. So there is many issues in the world right now. Definitely so far through to we're actually quite a low number of digital nomads. We are definitely not 30 million. Definitely not 1 billion yet, like the level said. So far, our impact is very, very limited in the housing crisis, and all the news are just the left media trying to take advantage of a new word they learned to get some points.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Digital nomads are not to blame for greedy landlords. They're not to blame for a world that was locked down for 2 years and couldn't travel and go on holiday and want to go to beautiful places just as tourists. Digital nomads are not responsible for a war in Ukraine. They're not responsible for double-digit inflation. The media likes to seize on visible correlations. Oh, there's more digital nomads. Oh, there's shortages of housing in certain hotspots, so let's put those two together and say Gonzalo death threats, because, clearly this is the nature of the problem, and it's so short-sighted. The data is not there. It's exactly the same. We live in Valencia in Spain. No one can get an apartment there. Obviously, it's harder if you don't have a local employment contract, but even if you do, there simply isn't the housing in the places that people want to live. So this is the thing we have to fix. And to be honest, digital nomads can't fix all of that. We need more agaetes. We need more projects like this that are bringing people away from the hot spots, and that will distribute the problem. But it won't solve it if there's no housing there in the first place.
Dan, any additional thoughts on positive or negative impact?
I just want, again, focus on the individual, and I think it's our responsibility, each and every one of us, as we travel, as we live our lifestyle as digital nomads and remote professionals, we need to do our best to be good visitors. At the end, we are guests at the places we go. And if we want to be understood, we need to listen to the other side. And it's often like, hey, we want to come make a change, we'll help you with knowledge and we'll build co-workings. Do we know if they even want it? Is this kind of help? Maybe they like to grow rice all their life and it's totally good for them. So this is why I participate in such events like Nomad City, because this is the idea, to connect with the locals, to listen to what they need, what they want. Maybe they don't want, and also we need to respect it as well. But with anything you do, if there is no resistance, it means you're not moving or changing anything. It means it's a flyby, no one is paying attention. So we need to expect this resistance, but not go and protest on the streets and go to the media, but create those conversations in small rooms, in conferences, and get it solved by listening to the other side and sounding our needs and wants. At the end, we are still a drop in the bucket in terms of population. So we are a little bit, I think we are bigger than what we are, and I was like, this is the best way to live. But I think we need to also, okay, if they want to, if they put a price on Gonzalo's head, let's listen why. You know?
Maya, you brought up a very good point, which was the next topic. One of the ways of increasing the positive impact has to do with repopulating or re-people rural areas, right? And we have probably the master of this here on stage, Mr. Gonzalo, who decided to start a community in Madeira, but not in Funchal, which would be the easy choice, but go to a town further south or further west. Further west, very small, tiny town, has some similarities to Agaete, and built an amazing community there. Not happy with that, he started a community in Pipa, and somewhere in Brazil, and not happy with that, he also helped build a community in Cabo Verde. Why so, and where is the positive side of it?
I actually learned a lot with people like you, like Matthias in Bansko, like Igor that built a Sende co-living space in north of Spain, a rural co-living space, with Grow Remote from Ireland. And all these, in different ways, in different perspectives, had a common idea and a common connection, which is cities are not actually the best place to live. I am from Lisbon. I hate Lisbon. I know most of you love Lisbon. You would not grow up there. It's okay. But cities are not actually that good. So if we think that we need 3 things to be happy, and this is not me, it's from a book, someone smarter than myself, the 3 things are community. It's surprising that in cities we don't actually have a community in most cities. We need nature, access to nature. Again, Lisbon is bad, unless you count the bad buildings as nature. And we need exercise. Again, Portuguese culture in Lisbon, again, is not great for that. Taking these 3 aspects of happiness, the best places to live, the places that were built around community, the places that are surrounded by nature, the places that allow you to exercise just by walking out of your door, are villages like Agaete. So these are, in my opinion, the best places to live. Okay, people didn't figure it out yet, but now we can work remotely. The only reason we left Agaete to go to Las Palmas was because jobs were in Las Palmas. This is not true anymore. My job is wherever I am, it's on my laptop. Cool, so now we can build communities, because people move between communities in places like Ponta do Sol, in places like Agaete. And trust me, since we built the Nomad community in Ponta do Sol, people are flocking, locals are coming back, expats are coming. We don't have enough houses for everybody who wants to live, including locals, in Ponta do Sol. Ponta do Sol is 4 streets in the good day. One the street of restaurants, the street of the co-working space, the street of the beach, and the street that goes up. And this is Ponta do Sol. Everybody goes there to work. We have 60 events per week. Things don't stop. We built the social part for people to actually want to live there. People don't move to Ponta do Sol or to people because it's beautiful. It is. But Agaete is beautiful, like the world is beautiful. They move there because we built a society where they want to live. We built these, and that never-ending stream of digital nomads that stay there for 2 months. Some of these people already stay there, so we built this international community full of new ideas, from the previous head of the Bank of America to the guy starting a new indie project. Everyone, you can find everyone in this small village of Ponta do Sol. But you also have the locals, and the locals are not just seen as invaders, they are building businesses for us, which is quite cool. They are building businesses to serve our community. Oh, you don't like to cook? Great. Now I cook and deliver vegan meals to your house. because we need it. Some of us hate to cook. Oh, you don't like to go to taxi to the airport? Cool. Now I have like 5 private drivers. Their side gig is to take nomads to the airport. So the nomads are local. They understand the needs. They understand that public transportation is really bad. In Madeira here is quite good. So they understand that by actually creating businesses around this international community, they don't have to leave to Lisbon. They don't have to leave to the UK. They can live with their business in their own community. So villages are the best places to live. We just need to build the society, the activities around them to make them interesting.
As a summary, on one side you are attracting locals that left, that now their own hometowns are much more interesting than they used to be.
Yes.
That's a very important point, because I've talked to a few locals that left, and one of the things they miss when they return home is actually the interaction with a much broader pool of people, right? But you're also activating the local service industry. This is one of the biggest problems in many rural areas, right? The fact that there's no people, or people with not the possibility to spend much, so the services around them, they just disappear. They move somewhere else. So you're reactivating that, right?
Yeah, and we're building the bridges between everybody. This is the key part. So this only happens because the nomads have a bridge, this project of the government, myself, our community manager. The expats use this bridge to integrate the nomad community, and the locals can also use this bridge to integrate the local community. So our Slack channel that was built for nomads now integrates locals, expats, and everybody, because they all want to belong to this community. But only happened because we built this kind of new society around Slack that connects everyone. We don't focus on nomads anymore. It's the whole funnel that I showed.
Awesome. We have a little bit over 2 minutes left, and before Anna starts staring at me, please, Bindu.
Very useful, whatever you're sharing. It's perfect, because something new for me. So I just wanted to ask if it's a possibility to have like exchange homes, between digital nomads, or people who just want to travel around. Or I might go to Madeira and you can come here in my apartment to Agaete, for example.
Yes, in fact, I can't remember the name of it, but there is already a project around it. Do you guys?
Swap-Offy is one that I've come across recently. They've got, and they're literally, it's like a home swap, but the photo is of the home office, so people are showing, this is my desk, you can work here, here's the view, this is the speed of the broadband, this is what you need. So that's very new. I think they're not even properly launched yet, they're still incubating, but that was an interesting one I came across recently. I'm sure it's the future.
I think that's a beautiful project, because this will allow those remote workers that are from a municipality, let's say Agaete, that live here part of the year, to relocate to another place and sort of swap with another remote worker, while they're both getting the best out of their own places, because they will get not only the house itself, but probably a lot of knowledge around the area, the community, etc., etc. So it's like a perfect.
It's good for us more settled home workers as well. I'm interested in that idea that somebody could actually come and feed our cats and use the office, and we could travel more flexibly because of that.
1 minute left. Any additional questions?
One question about all the communication is mainly done through the technologies like Slack. And what do you think is the most impactful technology that I was hoping to build the community?
What's up? Yeah, it's easy entry, everybody knows how to use it. It becomes a nightmare very soon, but it's the most common, right? You guys who are staying here already in 20 WhatsApp groups, it's a nightmare, I know, but it's very easy access for everyone. Slack is like the next stage, right?
But is it not only related to the communications, not the technology that allows to grow the community, not only the communication tools?
I would like to bring a good point around that Gonzalo talked to me about, and you can build up on it. In Madeira, you guys have centralized the communication, right? Can you?
Yeah, we are lucky to start before anything happened. Like here, things happened, and then the government jumped in. I was literally paid to build it from scratch, and I decided for Slack today I change my opinion. I will use Discord instead. The reason I hate WhatsApp, first it's because I never answer messages, and when I do, my WhatsApp it's a mess. It's that it's very disorganized. So on Slack I have accommodation sharing. I have 5 communities now in Madeira. I have Ponta do Sol activities, Ponta do Sol accommodation, Ponta do Sol co-working, and it's beautiful.
It's organized.
So in the beginning, there is an entry barrier, like it was for Facebook, like it was for WhatsApp. After 1 month, people figure it out. So we don't do only Slack, we also integrate in the local community. So we did physical workshops for the local restaurants to understand that this new public, they like vegetarian food. Like Madeira, we have really good skewers, incredible meat. We also need to have vegetarian dishes. And one of the cool things that we did with this workshop is that our best restaurant in Porto do Sol, Steak and Sun, now is actually one of the best vegan restaurants as well. And so we did workshops also for the accommodation to break this barrier. And we literally had the people from all over the island to come on and learn about what these digital nomads wanted. So everybody improved the internet. Everybody understand we need a place to work, so they added that. And it's very interesting. They still come to me. I was visiting a new house that a Portuguese girl wants to put in the market for digital nomads only, and she invited me to give ideas to her on how to improve their house. So there is this offline communication happening. They know if they go to our co-working space, my number is there, my face is there, I can give them that information, but then we migrate them to Slack. So how do I promote my house? Go to Slack. How do I create events? Go to Slack. But we have to go offline to bring them to our platform as well.
Guys, time is over. I hope you enjoyed. A round of applause to the great speakers.
And please stay, because I have a big surprise for you.